Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The war did not end with victory music or grand speeches. It ended with silence. One moment, the sky was full of burning light and screaming alarms. The next, there was only drifting ash and a wind that moved carefully, as if afraid to wake something dangerous. The battlefield stretched for miles, scarred and broken, littered with machines that would never move again. Lieutenant Eli Mercer stood alone near the remains of a shattered defense wall, his rifle hanging loose in his hands. He did not cheer. He did not raise his fist or shout in relief. He simply breathed. The air tasted like metal and smoke, with something sharp underneath alien soil reacting badly to human explosives. Eli pulled off his helmet and let the cool wind touch his face. His hair was matted with sweat. His eyes burned from too many sleepless nights. The war was over. That fact felt unreal. Around him, other human soldiers slowly began to react. Some laughed too loudly. Some hugged each other with desperate strength. A few sat down in the dirt and stared at nothing, as if their minds had not yet caught up with reality. Eli had learned during the war that survival did not always feel like relief. Sometimes it felt like weight. A dropship roared overhead, its engines echoing across the plains. Eli watched it disappear into the clouds, carrying wounded soldiers back to orbit. He should have been happy. Humanity had won, or at least humanity had not lost, which was often the same thing. The Cathari Empire had surrendered. No one had expected that. For 3 years, the Cathari, tall, elegant aliens with silver eyes and voices like calm music, had pushed human forces back system by system. Their technology was superior. Their fleets were cleaner, faster, and terrifyingly precise. What they did not expect was humans refusing to break. Humans kept fighting even when retreat made more sense. They fought without songs, without banners that shimmered, without believing their leaders' speeches. They fought because someone had to stand in the way. That confused the Cathari. Eli turned as a sharp, crystal-clear sound echoed across the field. It was not human. The Cathari used instruments grown, not built. This one produced a tone so perfect it made his teeth ache. A ceremony call. Eli sighed. "Of course," he muttered, "there's always a ceremony." The soldiers were ordered into formation. Eli took his place, standing straighter than he felt. His armor was scratched, scorched, patched with field repairs. He smelled like smoke and old fear. Across the field, a raised platform unfolded from the ground, alien machinery blooming like a metallic flower. Cathari honor guards stepped forward, their armor sleek and luminous, weapons held not as threats but as symbols. Then Empress Salith appeared. She was taller than most humans, her posture flawless. A floating circlet hovered above her head, glowing softly. Her silver eyes scanned the gathered troops, not cold, not warm, but measuring. When she spoke, her voice carried without speakers. "Today," she said, "we acknowledge an outcome none of our models predicted." Eli blinked. That alone caught his attention. "We acknowledge endurance," Salith continued, "and defiance that did not collapse into hatred." The Cathari advisors behind her shifted subtly. This was not the speech they had planned. Salith's gaze settled on the human formation. "Lieutenant Elias Mercer," she said. Eli stiffened. That was him. For a brief, ridiculous moment, he wondered if he had done something wrong. He stepped forward. Each footstep felt heavier than the last. He climbed onto the platform, aware of hundreds of eyes on him, human and alien alike. Salith studied him closely. "You led the defense of Grid 9, she said. "Yes, Your Radiance," Eli replied automatically. "You were outnumbered 6-1. "Yes." "You refused evacuation." "Yes." A pause. "Why?" The translators hesitated, as if unsure how to render the question. Eli swallowed. "Because if we left," he said slowly, "you would have used that world to hit the next one." Silence followed. Salith tilted her head slightly. "That answer was not in our projections." Eli shrugged before he could stop himself. "We don't live in projections." A ripple of reaction moved through the Cathari ranks. Salith's lips curved, not quite a smile but close. "You survived," she said, "against probability." She raised a hand. An attendant stepped forward, holding a small, glowing insignia. "By the authority of the Cathari throne," Salith declared, "I grant you bonded status." The words meant nothing to Eli, until the translator whispered urgently in his ear. Bonded status, a living symbol of alliance, entitled to protection, provision, and assignment of a Cathari companion. Eli froze. Assignment. The insignia was placed against his armor. It attached itself with a soft click. The crowd reacted. Human soldiers murmured in confusion. Cathari nobles watched with intense interest. Eli forced himself to bow, then stepped back, his heart pounding. What had he just agreed to? That night, the camp was quieter than it had been in months. Victory meals were distributed, human rations mixed awkwardly with alien nutrition packs. Eli sat alone on a crate, staring at the glowing insignia on his chest. He did not like it. It felt heavy. He had not fought to become a symbol. He had fought to survive. Footsteps approached his tent, slow, deliberate, unfamiliar. Eli frowned. He reached for his sidearm out of habit, then stopped himself. The war was over. The tent flap lifted with precise care. A Cathari officer stepped inside. She was tall, her armor darker than ceremonial guard gear, shaped for movement. Her silver eyes were sharp but calm. Long, fin-like extensions swept back from her temples, a sign of command rank. "I am Errol Veth," she said. "I have been assigned to you." There it was again. Assigned. Eli exhaled slowly. "That makes two of us who didn't sign up for this." Her eyes flickered. That response was not anticipated. "Story of my life," Eli replied. She studied him, clearly reassessing. "In my culture," Errol said carefully, "this bond is an honor." "In mine," Eli said, "people aren't rewards." Silence filled the tent. Outside, someone laughed. A generator hummed. Life continued, unaware of the quiet tension inside. Errol removed her helmet. Her face was more human than Eli expected. Tired, controlled, curious. "You may refuse," she said. Eli looked at her. "Did you get that option?" A pause. "No." That settled something in him. "Then sit," he said, gesturing to a crate. "If we're stuck with this misunderstanding, we might as well talk." She hesitated, then obeyed. For the first time since the war ended, Eli felt something shift. Not victory, not defeat, but the beginning of a question no one had planned for. The morning after the ceremony arrived quietly. No alarms screamed, no artillery thundered. The war camps woke like tired animals stretching after a long winter. Eli Mercer sat on the edge of his cot, boots unlaced, staring at the insignia resting on the crate beside him. It still glowed faintly. Errol Veth stood near the tent opening, her posture formal but relaxed, as if she were unsure whether she was guarding him or simply waiting. Her armor plates were folded back into a rest configuration, making her look less like an officer and more like someone caught between duties. "You did not sleep," she said. Eli snorted. "I did, just not at the same time as my brain." She nodded as if that made sense. Outside, human and Cathari soldiers worked side by side dismantling defenses that had once tried very hard to kill each other. It was strange how quickly war could become history when survival demanded cooperation. Eli finally spoke. So, he said, what exactly does bonded status mean? Errol turned to face him fully. It means, she said slowly, that the Empire considers you significant. Eli grimaced. That's never good. To us, she continued, shared survival creates obligation. You stood when logic advised retreat. You did not seek conquest, yet you did not yield. That combination is rare. Yeah, Eli replied. It gets us in trouble a lot. Errol studied him again, as she had done many times already, as if she were trying to understand a puzzle that refused to behave. You do not seek advantage, she said, yet you refuse submission. Why? Eli stood and pulled on his boots. Because, he said, if you accept advantage that costs your choice, you don't really win. You just change owners. Her silver eyes narrowed slightly. That belief, she said, has destabilized empires before. Good, Eli replied. Maybe they needed destabilizing. The summons arrived an hour later. A Cathari courier drone hovered outside the tent, projecting glowing symbols that resolved into a formal message. Eli did not need the translator to know what it meant. The throne was calling. Errol read it first, then handed it to him. The Empress requests your presence, she said, and mine. Eli sighed. Of course she does. They traveled together in silence, moving through corridors grown from living crystal and metal. The Cathari capital ship loomed above them, elegant and intimidating in equal measure. The audience chamber was worse. It was designed to make visitors feel small without openly threatening them. The ceiling curved upward into impossible heights. Light reflected off polished surfaces in ways that made depth hard to judge. Empress Salith waited at the center. Her advisors formed a half-circle behind her, ears angled in subtle patterns that carried meanings Eli could not read. Lieutenant Mercer, Salith said, Commander Veth. They bowed Eli a fraction late. You have accepted the bond, Salith continued. Eli cleared his throat. Respectfully, Your Radiance, I accepted a conversation, not ownership. A murmur passed through the advisors. Salith did not react with anger. Instead, she smiled. That, she said, is precisely why you were chosen. Eli frowned. Chosen for what? Salith rose from her throne. The motion was smooth, controlled, powerful. For example, she said, for contradiction. She gestured, and a holographic display bloomed in the air. Star maps appeared, dozens of systems marked with symbols. These, Salith explained, are frontier worlds, independent species, weak, fragmented. Eli felt a cold knot form in his stomach. They will fall, Salith continued, to someone. The Empire prefers order. Humans prefer freedom. This creates inefficiency. You're planning another war, Eli said flatly. A restructuring, Salith corrected. Eli shook his head. Same thing with better lighting. Salith turned to him fully. You could help us, she said. Your presence would legitimize cooperation, a symbol, a bridge. Errol stiffened slightly. Eli stared at the star map. He saw numbers, probabilities, clean solutions. And he saw people who would not get a choice. No, he said. The chamber went silent. Errol turned toward him sharply. Salith's eyes hardened just a little. You refuse alignment, the Empress asked. I refuse being used, Eli replied. And I refuse helping anyone take worlds because it's efficient. This refusal carries consequence, Salith warned. Eli met her gaze. So does obedience. Another silence followed, heavier this time. Salith studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was quiet, genuine. Fascinating, she said. You are willing to endanger your species, standing to protect strangers. Eli shrugged. That's kind of our thing. Salith turned to Errol. You may leave us. Errol hesitated. Then she said no. Every head in the chamber turned. "I choose to remain," Errol said calmly, "not as assignment, as decision." The advisors erupted in shocked motion. Salith's expression shifted, not anger but interest. "You would follow a human into uncertainty?" the Empress asked. "Yes," Errol replied, "because uncertainty chosen is not weakness." Salith considered this. Then she waved her hand. "Go," she said, "both of you." Eli blinked. "That's it." "For now," Salith replied, "you have introduced an inefficiency I must study." They left the chamber together, tension slowly draining from their shoulders. Only when they reached the corridor did Eli exhale fully. "Well," he said, "that went better than expected." Errol looked at him. "You realize," she said, "that you have disrupted centuries of doctrine." "Yeah," Eli replied, "happens." She stopped walking. "Why?" she asked again. "Why risk so much?" Eli thought for a long moment. "Because," he said, "if survival costs becoming something you hate, then surviving isn't enough." Errol absorbed that in silence. Weeks passed. The war formally ended, treaties were signed, borders stabilized. Eli declined every offer of status, rank, or symbolic title. Instead, he helped coordinate evacuation corridors for neutral worlds caught between powers. Humans followed. Some Cathari did too. The Empire watched. Errol remained at his side, not as guardian, not as reward, but as partner. They argued, they laughed, they learned each other's habits. Human Command asked Eli if he was sure about refusing advancement. He answered honestly, "Yes." One evening, as they stood on the observation deck watching stars slide past, Errol spoke quietly. "My people believe purpose is assigned," she said. "You believe it is chosen." Eli nodded. "Every day." She looked at him, silver eyes steady. "I am choosing," she said. Eli smiled. "So am I." Years later, historians would struggle to define the moment the galaxy changed. Some pointed to the ceasefire, others to the treaties. But those who looked closely noticed something smaller. A human soldier who refused a crown. An empire forced to question certainty. And a simple truth spreading quietly across the stars. Humans did not conquer because they were strongest. They endured because they refused to surrender their right to choose. And that, more than any weapon, terrified the galaxy. The end.